Wife shattered our marriage by using my traumatic childhood memories against me in a fight over our son's homework. We've been married for 14 years. Together, we worked to build what I believed was a stable, lasting life. We have 2 kids, a son who's 12 and a daughter who just turned 11. They are my entire world. When I look at them, I feel a kind of love I never knew existed. Honestly, I never felt anything like that as a child myself, which is something my wife has always known, even though it took years before I could admit it out loud. When we first got married, she noticed how I never talked about my parents or my childhood. She'd tell me stories about her own upbringing, warm holiday memories, how her parents decorated the house, sibling squabbles that turned into funny family legends. I always just nodded and smiled. She told me repeatedly that she wanted to understand me more, to really know me. Over the years she kept gently pressing, until one day she begged me to open up. 7 years ago, I finally told her everything. I told her I was never wanted, never meant to be here. I was the 4th child, the result after 3 siblings, a failed contraception baby. An accident, as my parents called me. They reminded me of that constantly. It wasn't subtle. It wasn't hidden. They'd speak it out loud in front of me, over and over. I told her about the amusement park day when I was 9, the day they tried to get rid of me. They left me, on purpose. Even at 9, I knew. They must have thought I'd panic, wander off, maybe just disappear. What they didn't expect was that I'd memorize the road home. When I turned up hours later, they acted as if it had just been a mistake, a lost child in a crowd. But I knew. I will never forget what that felt like. I told her about the night my father wrapped his hands around my throat, squeezed until my vision narrowed and my world went dark at the edges. I couldn't breathe. My head felt like it would burst. To this day, I have no idea why he let go. Maybe my mother walked in, maybe something inside him pulled back, but somehow, I lived. Just barely. I told her about the food. How some nights everyone else ate and I sat there watching, not because we were poor, but because they excluded me. If there was something good, a treat or dessert, they'd divide it among themselves, leaving nothing for me. I'd sit there, stomach gnawing, pretending not to exist, while they laughed amongst themselves. I told her how they never missed a chance to remind me I was only an accident. My parents said it. My siblings picked it up. It was the household joke, that I wasn't supposed to be here. That I was the mistake they couldn't erase. I even told her about the time they admitted, with absolutely no hesitation, that they'd planned to abort me but never went through with it. They said it as if it were just trivia, instead of a dagger straight to my chest. And I told her about the winter night they locked me outside as punishment, for something I didn't even do. I must have been 10. It was freezing cold. I stood shivering, teeth rattling, crying and trying not to think about what might happen if I didn't make it through the night. The neighbor saw me, banging on the door until my mother opened up. That neighbor probably saved me that night. All of this, all of these wounds, I finally poured out to her. It wasn't easy. I remember shaking, feeling exposed like I'd ripped open scars I'd kept hidden for years. She hugged me afterward. She told me she was glad I trusted her, and she promised she would never throw my pain back in my face. Last night, she broke that promise. We argued. It was stupid. It started with our son's homework. She said I was too soft on him, that I let things slide. I told her she was being too harsh. It escalated from there. One of those arguments where you both forget the point and just want to win. And then she said it. She looked at me and said maybe my father should have finished what he started that night, that I didn't even deserve to have a family, let alone children. That maybe it would have been better if I hadn't survived, that I was never wanted anyway, and I was the one who told her that. I froze. I genuinely thought I misheard her at first, but then she said it again. Calmly. Like she was just pointing out a fact. I can't describe what it did to me. People have said cruel things to me before. I've been mocked, insulted, belittled, but this was different. This was the one person I'd let into the deepest parts of my soul. She took my pain and used it as a weapon. I stood there in total silence. I couldn't even yell back. Something inside me just shattered. The rest of the night, I barely spoke. She acted like nothing had happened. I spent the night in the spare bedroom, lying awake, her words replaying in my head, tangled with my parents' voices from years ago. All those cruel jokes, those reminders that I was unwanted, but now layered with her voice on top. I thought of the rage I used to carry as a teenager, how I sometimes wished my mother would just die painfully. I thought those feelings were buried, but last night she dug them back up and hurled them at me. I can't move past it. This morning, she was cheerful, as though none of it had happened. I could barely look at her. All I could think was that something inside me had broken, maybe for good. I keep thinking about divorce now. Or at least separation. I don't know where to start. I don't know what kind of lawyer to call. I don't know how to explain to my kids why their parents might be breaking apart. Part of me wonders if I'm overreacting, if this was just a fight that went way too far. But I know myself. I'm not overreacting. I can't imagine ever forgetting what she said. Usually, I move on. From almost anything. I swallow pain, bury it, keep going. But this isn't something I can just swallow. This is different. She went for the deepest wound, drove the knife in, and twisted. I need to say this clearly, even if it's just to myself. I'm not crazy for feeling so broken. I need condolences. I feel like I'm spiraling, unable to stop replaying her words. I truly thought my past was finally behind me, dead and buried. But last night showed me it's still there, alive, and able to be used against me by the person I trusted most. And I don't know how I could ever forgive her for that. Update 1. I waited until Tuesday. My wife went through the weekend and Monday like nothing had happened, just colder than usual, quick with her answers, acting irritated like I was the one who had caused all of this. No apology, not even a hint of one. All weekend it felt like I was carrying something heavy and invisible, watching her just move around it as if it wasn't even there. By Tuesday afternoon, I couldn't hold it in anymore. I asked her to sit down with me. The house was quiet, one of those rare moments where everything stood still, except what was boiling inside me. I told her I needed to talk about what she said during the fight, because it wasn't something we could just pretend hadn't happened. I reminded her that the fight started because I refused to hit our son while teaching him. I don't believe in beating kids to make them learn, and she had pushed for it. That's where it began, and it slid into something so much uglier. I asked her outright, why did she use what I told her in confidence against me? I reminded her how, years ago, she'd asked me to open up, promised she'd keep what I said safe. Why did she hug me back then, if this was where it would end up? At first, she was stiff. She told me she didn't know what else to do at the time. That she'd just tried to act normal and be supportive, but she hadn't known how to handle what I told her. She said she hadn't realized how heavy it all was until later. Her voice was so even, like she was just describing facts. But I told her the promise mattered. This wasn't about a slip in anger, it was about trust. She had reached for the exact things I handed her in trust, and used them against me. I needed to know why. That's when she finally admitted it. She told me, after I opened up, she'd lost some respect for me. I asked her what that meant, and she didn't give me one detail, she gave me the whole picture. She confessed that she'd always seen me as solid, someone who could carry weight without bending, the person she could lean on. But after I shared everything, she couldn't stop seeing the breaks under the surface. She said my story made me look fragile to her. The darker pieces, the way those years sat inside me, gave her an uneasy feeling she couldn't shake. Seeing me tear up, seeing me so nervous and broken apart by the memories, it made her look at me so differently. She actually used the word ick. Sometimes just remembering what I'd told her got in the way of how she used to see me. I asked if that meant she thought less of me for surviving. She said it wasn't about surviving, it was about how it changed what she expected from me. She'd built an image of me that didn't include those kinds of wounds, and once she knew, she couldn't put that image back together. I pressed her, why hug me, why tell me she wanted to know me fully? She just said she didn't know what else to do in that moment. She didn't want to punish me for telling the truth. Holding me and saying it was okay felt like the only decent response she could muster, even though, inside, she was already starting to see me differently. It sat heavy between us, but I asked the worst thing, why did she turn my pain into a weapon? She admitted she couldn't control herself, that she reached for what she knew would wound me most. She said she regretted it, that it would never happen again. But the truth is, I never just dumped everything onto her. I'd gone to therapy, I'd done the work. The only reason she even heard those parts of me was because she demanded it, insisted I open up, that she wanted the whole picture. I trusted her enough to hand her things I never planned on saying out loud, because she made me believe she'd hold them safe. And then she used them to cut me. It felt like giving someone your heartbeat because they said they wanted to hold it close, and then watching them drive a knife right through it. After everything she said, I just sat there. I finally had the truth, but it didn't settle right. I wasn't even shocked anymore, just resigned. Sometimes I wonder if I told her too much, overwhelmed her. But I only ever told her what she asked for, bit by bit, in answer to her pressing questions. She probably only ever heard a fraction of what I'm really wrestling with. Why did she push so hard for me to be emotionally vulnerable if this was how she'd react? Why did she insist, over and over, that she wanted all of me, if she could only love the version of me she'd imagined instead? I told her then I didn't think I could just go back to the way things were. I told her I felt like the foundation was cracked too deeply to ignore. That maybe the only way forward was to separate, quietly, before things got uglier. I said I didn't think I could keep looking at her the same way, knowing she could turn something so personal into a weapon. That's when her whole tone changed. That firmness melted away and in its place was a kind of panic. She begged me not to say that, insisted she didn't want a divorce. She said she still loved me, that whatever she'd done in anger wasn't bigger than the life we'd built. She couldn't imagine splitting the kids, couldn't imagine them in 2 houses, their lives cut in half. She told me leaving would scar them more than anything we'd gone through. I told her love isn't about tearing each other apart with the sharpest words we can find. She said she knew that she'd never do it again. She kept repeating the same thing. The kids need us together, we have to fix our issues without breaking the family apart. She didn't cry, but her voice had a real desperation, like I was already gone and she was trying to pull me back. She didn't properly apologize again for what she'd done, not directly, but she just kept stressing it'd never happen again. That I shouldn't throw everything away over one mistake. Now, I haven't made a final decision. I keep turning everything over in my head, wondering if the damage is too deep and if I'd just be lying to myself to pretend otherwise. A part of me wonders if I could ever really see her the same way again. Yet, another part still hesitates, because walking away isn't simple when there are kids and years of life intertwined. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't leaning more toward the end than holding on, but I'm just not there yet. Most days, I feel heavy, caught between wanting to protect myself and not wanting to split my family apart. Update 2. It's been 3 weeks since our conversation. I thought I'd made peace with staying, at least for now. We'd fallen into this careful routine, polite exchanges, nothing too deep, both of us walking on eggshells. The kids seemed oblivious, which was what I wanted. I figured maybe time would dull the edges of what happened, maybe we could rebuild something from the wreckage. Then last Thursday happened. I was cleaning out our bedroom closet, looking for my old running gear buried in the back corner. My hand brushed against something wedged behind her jewelry box, a small notebook I'd never seen before. I almost put it back without looking. Privacy and all that. But something about where it was hidden made me pause. The first few pages were innocent enough. Shopping lists, appointment reminders, things about the kids' schedules. Then I flipped deeper and saw my name. And then I saw everything. Entry after entry, going back 2 years. Not a diary exactly, but close enough. She'd been writing about me, about us, about things I never knew she was thinking. The earliest entries were different, frustrated complaints about my emotional walls, how I never shared anything real with her. I remember those times. She was right about that part, but then came the entries after I opened up to her. After I told her everything about my childhood. The tone shifted completely. He cried today talking about his father. I hate seeing him like that. It makes me feel sick to my stomach. I married a man, not a broken child. Sometimes when he talks about his past I just want to tell him to get over it already. Everyone has problems. Why does his have to define everything? I catch myself looking at him differently now. When he laughs with the kids, I remember him sobbing about being unwanted and it changes something. I don't want to feel this way but I can't help it. Page after page of this. 2 years worth. Each entry felt like a punch to the gut, but I couldn't stop reading. The worst part wasn't even her losing respect for me. It was what came next. About 8 months ago, the entries started mentioning someone else. David from her work. Little things at first, how he made her laugh, how easy conversations were with him, how uncomplicated he seemed. David doesn't carry baggage like a wounded animal. When I'm with him I remember what it feels like to be with someone who's just whole. I know it's wrong but I look forward to our lunch meetings more than coming home some days. He sees me as interesting, attractive, fun. Not just the mother of his broken husband's children. The entries got more detailed. More intimate. They'd been having an affair for 6 months. I sat on our bedroom floor with that notebook in my lap, feeling like the world had tilted sideways. All this time I've been agonizing over whether to leave because of what she said that night, and she'd already checked out emotionally years ago. The fight, her cruel words, they weren't just anger. They were her true feelings finally breaking through. I heard her car in the driveway. I slipped the notebook back where I found it and went downstairs. When she walked in, chatting about her day at work, mentioning staying late for a project meeting, I just nodded and smiled. For the first time in weeks, she seemed relaxed around me. Happy, even. I wondered if she'd been with him that evening. That was 4 days ago. I haven't said anything yet. I keep watching her, looking for signs I missed before. The way she checks her phone constantly. How she started wearing perfume to work again a few months back. The new lingerie I thought was for me. I called my brother yesterday. We don't talk much, he lives across the country and we were never particularly close, but I needed to tell someone. I gave him the basics about the marriage falling apart. He listened, then said something that's been echoing in my head. Maybe this is your chance to finally put yourself first for once. I've been thinking about that. My whole life, I've been surviving other people's cruelty or trying to earn their love. Even in my marriage, I've been so focused on being worthy, on proving I deserve to be here, that I never stopped to ask if I was actually happy. The kids are at my wife's parents' this weekend. She suggested it, said we needed time to work on us. I'm pretty sure I know how she really plans to spend that time. I made an appointment with a divorce attorney for Monday morning. I also opened my own bank account yesterday, something I should have done years ago. I'm not rushing into anything, but I'm preparing. The difference is, this time I'm not leaving because I'm broken or unwanted. I'm leaving because I finally understand my worth. Part of me wants to confront her with the notebook, to watch her scramble for explanations. But honestly, what would be the point? I already know everything I need to know. She's been lying to my face for months while I've been beating myself up over whether I was being too sensitive about one fight. The strangest thing is how calm I feel now. Not happy, exactly, but clear. Like fog lifting. For the first time in years, maybe decades, I'm not questioning whether I deserve better. I know I do. I don't know what's going to happen when the kids come home Sunday night. Whether I'll say something then, or wait until after I talk to the lawyer. But I'm done carrying other people's shame about my existence. I'm done letting anyone, even her, convince me I'm too damaged to deserve love and respect. Maybe my brother was right. Maybe this is finally my chance to put myself first. Update 3. The lawyer meeting went differently than I expected. I walked in Monday morning thinking I'd just get the paperwork started, maybe ask about custody arrangements. What I didn't expect was for him to tell me to document everything before making any moves. He said finding that notebook was good, but I needed more than just her written thoughts about the affair. Judges care about facts, he said. Get proof of the infidelity first. It'll matter for custody and asset division. I felt sick walking out of there. The idea of playing detective on my own wife seemed wrong, even after everything. But then I remembered her words that night, and how easily she'd been lying to my face for months. Maybe it was time I stopped being naive. I didn't have to wait long. Tuesday evening, she announced she was working late again. Big presentation tomorrow, she said, not quite meeting my eyes. I nodded and told her I'd handle dinner for the kids. After they were in bed, I did something I never thought I'd do. I drove to her office building. Her car wasn't there. But I knew a 24-hour diner about 10 minutes away where she and David had mentioned grabbing coffee before. I almost turned around twice on the way there, telling myself this was crazy. But when I pulled into the parking lot, there they were. Sitting in a corner booth, her hand on top of his across the table. She was laughing at something he said, the kind of laugh I hadn't heard from her in years. I sat in my car for 20 minutes, watching them. The way she touched his arm when she talked. How she leaned in close when he whispered something. At one point he got up to use the restroom and she watched him walk away with this look on her face, like she was hungry for him. I'd seen that look before, back when we were dating. I'd forgotten she was capable of it. When they finally got up to leave, I started my car and left before they could see me. I got home and pretended to be asleep when she came in at 11:30. She slipped into bed quietly, and I could smell his cologne on her skin. The next morning, she was humming while making coffee, actually humming. Meanwhile, I felt like I was drowning in plain sight. Friday brought the real shock. I was doing laundry, her clothes mixed in with mine like always, when I found the receipt in her jacket pocket. A hotel receipt. From last Tuesday, the day I'd seen them together. 2-hour stay at the Hampton Inn on Riverside. Room 247. I stared at that piece of paper for so long the words started to blur. This wasn't just emotional anymore. They were sleeping together, and she was careless enough to leave evidence in her jacket. Or maybe she wanted me to find it. Maybe this was her way of forcing the issue without having to say the words. That afternoon, something in me snapped. I called her office. Her assistant said she was in meetings all day. So I called David's department directly. Oh, David's been working from home this week, his colleague told me cheerfully. Flu bug, I think. She came home that evening talking about how exhausting her day had been, all those back-to-back meetings. I watched her perform this lie with such ease it actually impressed me. This woman I'd been married to for 14 years had become a complete stranger. The kids were at the kitchen table doing homework when she kissed my cheek and asked about my day. I almost laughed. Here she was, playing loving wife after spending the afternoon in a hotel room with another man. Our daughter looked up and smiled at us, probably thinking how nice it was to see mom and dad being affectionate again. That's when it hit me. I wasn't just angry about the betrayal anymore. I was angry about what she was teaching our children. That lying was acceptable. That this was what marriage looked like. Saturday morning, I told her I was taking the kids to my brother's for the weekend. She seemed relieved, probably already planning how she'd spend her free time. But instead of driving to my brother's, I took them to my mother-in-law's house. I told her there was an emergency I needed to handle and asked if she could watch them overnight. Then I drove to David's house. I didn't have a plan. I just sat outside his place for an hour, trying to decide what I wanted to say. Part of me wanted to confront him, to tell him exactly who he was sleeping with and what it was costing. But another part of me realized he probably didn't even know I existed. She'd probably painted me as some distant, emotionally unavailable husband. Maybe even told him we were already separated. I never got out of the car. Instead, I drove home and did something that surprised even me. I packed a bag and left. Not permanently, I couldn't abandon my kids like that. But I needed space to think without her presence clouding everything. I'm writing this from a hotel room across town. Tomorrow I have to go back and figure out what comes next, but for the first time in months, I'm not second-guessing myself. The woman I married wouldn't have written those things about me. The woman I married wouldn't have used my childhood trauma as a weapon. And she definitely wouldn't have been able to look our children in the eye while living a double life. I keep thinking about what my brother said. Maybe this is my chance to put myself first. I spent my childhood being unwanted, then spent my adult life trying to prove I was worthy of love. But worthy love doesn't require you to accept betrayal. It doesn't ask you to stay small so someone else can feel big. Tomorrow I'm going home. I'm going to tell her I know about David. And then I'm going to tell her I'm done trying to save something that died the night she wished my father had finished what he started. Update 4. I drove home Sunday evening with my hands shaking on the steering wheel. I'd practiced what I was going to say a dozen times, but my mouth felt dry as sand. The house was quiet when I walked in. She was in the kitchen, loading the dishwasher, still in the clothes she'd probably thrown on after I left Saturday. How was your brother's? She asked without looking up. I wasn't at my brother's. She froze. The plate in her hand hovered halfway to the rack. What do you mean? I know about David. The plate slipped from her fingers and shattered against the kitchen floor. She stared at the pieces for a long moment, then slowly looked at me. Her face went through about 5 different expressions before settling on something I'd never seen before. Caught. I don't know what you think you know, she started, but her voice was shaking. I pulled the hotel receipt from my pocket and set it on the counter between us. Room 247. Last Tuesday. While I was home helping our son with his math homework. She looked at the receipt like it might disappear if she stared hard enough. Then she sat down heavily in one of the kitchen chairs, her face in her hands. How long have you known? She whispered. Long enough. I also found your notebook. Her head snapped up. You went through my things? The audacity of it actually made me laugh. You're seriously going to talk to me about boundaries right now? She was quiet for a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice was different. Resigned. What do you want me to say? I want you to tell me the truth. All of it. So she did. The whole thing spilled out of her like a confession she'd been holding back for months. She told me how it started, innocent lunch conversations that turned into something more. How David made her feel like herself again, not just the wife of the guy with all the trauma. She said being with him was easy in ways our marriage hadn't been for years. He doesn't know about you, she said quietly. About us. I told him I was separated. So you've been living 2 completely different lives. She nodded, tears finally starting. I never meant for it to go this far. It just happened. Nothing just happens. You made choices. Every single time. That's when she broke down completely. Real sobs, the kind that shake your whole body. She begged me not to leave her, said she'd end it with David immediately. She promised she'd go to counseling, do whatever it took to fix things between us. Please, she kept saying, think about the kids. Think about everything we've built. I sat there watching her cry and felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, no urge to comfort her. Just an empty kind of clarity. Where are the kids now? I asked. Still at my mom's. They're supposed to stay until tomorrow morning. I nodded. Good. That gives us time to figure out how to tell them. Tell them what? That we're getting divorced. Her crying stopped abruptly. No. No, we can fix this. I'll end it with David tonight. We can go to couples therapy. We can. She used my childhood against me as a weapon, I interrupted. You told another man details about our marriage while lying in hotel beds with him. This isn't something therapy fixes. She tried a different approach then. Started talking about the kids' school, their friends, how divorce would uproot their entire lives. She painted this picture of broken holidays and shuttling between houses, all because I couldn't forgive. One mistake. One mistake? I pulled out my phone and showed her the photos I'd taken of her notebook entries. This isn't one mistake. This is 2 years of lying to yourself about who I am, 6 months of lying to me about where you are, and God knows how long of lying to our children about what kind of marriage they're watching. She stared at the phone screen, her face crumbling as she read her own words. I wrote that when I was angry. I didn't mean, you meant every word, and the worst part is, you're still lying. Even now. That night, we slept in separate rooms again. I heard her on the phone around midnight, probably calling David. Her voice was muffled through the walls, but I could hear the tone, desperate, pleading. I imagined her trying to explain that her separated husband had figured everything out. Monday morning, she tried one last time. Made me coffee the way I like it, talked about maybe taking a vacation somewhere warm after Christmas. Like we could just pretend the last month never happened. I called the school, I told her. Told them one of us would pick up the kids today to have a family meeting. Her face went pale. What are you going to tell them? The truth. Age appropriate, but the truth. Please don't do this. Please. I'm begging you. I looked at this woman I'd shared 14 years with, who knew my deepest wounds better than anyone alive, who'd been living a lie so elaborate she'd convinced herself it was justified. You already did this, I said. I'm just finishing what you started. The kids took it better than expected. Kids are resilient like that. Our daughter asked if it was because mommy and daddy didn't love each other anymore. Our son, older and more observant, asked if it was because mom had a boyfriend. Sometimes the truth has a way of being obvious, even to an 11-year-old. Tonight, she's staying at her sister's place. I'm in our house with the kids, and for the first time in months, the air feels clean. Tomorrow I start the process of building a life that's actually mine. And maybe, for the first time ever, I'll find out what it feels like to be wanted exactly as I am.